Bom dia, boa tarde, boa noite, or whatever the case may be. My name is Marcus, and I am the host of the Black Brazil Today YouTube channel, as well as the blackbraziltoday.com blog, where I analyze Brazil from the perspective of race. So today I want to go through and just do a reaction to a video that I saw maybe a week or two ago. I'm not sure. I see so much content that, sometimes I can't even keep track of when I first discovered something. So just want to react to something that, well-known social activists said recently because it just reiterates, what I've been saying for years. So the topic of today's video: now there are Black people in nice places, and that bothers the racists, says activist Frei Betto. Okay, so before I get into this video, again, this will be the initial preview video for the longer video that I'll release later. I'm going to ask you to like this video, share this video, drop a comment in the comment section, subscribe to the channel, and click on the notification bell so you'll be one of the first people to get my videos when I put up new ones, okay? So with that said, let me get directly into this video for the day. Okay. So this is Frei Betto. I've known about him for a number of years. He's been in the public spotlight for a number of years, a very well-known activist. He's an author. Frei Betto was born in 1944, so I guess he'll be 88. He'll be 80 years old this year. He's a Brazilian writer, political activist, liberation theologian, and a Dominican friar, which is what Frei means, friar in Portuguese. He was in prison for 4 years in the 1970s by the military dictatorship for smuggling people out of Brazil. He's still involved in Brazilian politics. He worked for the government of President Lula da Silva as an advisor on prison policy and child hunger. He has written 56 books, published in 23 languages. Okay, so this isn't a nobody who's talking right here. This is a lot of people. Anybody who's into the social struggle in Brazil will know who Frei Betto is. So what did he have to say? He had to say something that, the years that I stayed in Brazil, I saw changes. When we go back to the year 2000 up to about 2000, I want to say 2010, 11, 12, I really started noticing the differences in Black Brazilians popping up in Brazilian society where you just didn't see them before. Now, this is not to say that Brazil has just flipped on its ear. It's just saying that there are more Afro-Brazilians in areas and positions, being able to go to places that, before it was just a place where you saw white or near white Brazilians. The university settings might be a nice restaurant, might be you have in Brazil, you have shopping malls that are more for just the popular classes, the lower or low middle classes versus the more chic malls. This is something that I've seen for a number of years, and this is what he's talking about here. The rise of a more blatant form of racism, a more obvious, a more take off the gloves type racism is something that I talked about in my last video. It's like, whereas years before, either Brazilians would deny that they were racist, or if they admitted it was racism, they would always say it was somebody else rather than the person speaking, the person who's, yeah, there's racism, but I'm not racist. And the study will go on to say that even though people say they were not personally racist, they always seem to know someone who was racist, right? A famous, I think she's an anthropologist or sociologist. She said that Brazil is kind of like, what is it? Islands of racial democracy surrounded by racist in every corner. It's fascinating. Nobody wants to fess up to having racist sentiments, even though it's so common. So what I've talked about over the years is something that I call race and place. It's just the idea that Black Brazilians don't belong in certain areas. Certain areas are supposed to be just for white Brazilians, right? But as I've said for a number of years, we've seen this ascension of the Black middle class. A lot of this has to do with the affirmative action policies that go back a couple of decades now. Now, I'm not going to have a debate on what is middle class in Brazil, because you have a lot of people, and I totally respect this. It's totally true. What is solid middle class? Like, if you live paycheck to paycheck, how many paychecks can you go without before you're going to have a problem paying your bills, right? A lot of people have argued that Brazil doesn't have a true Black middle class because their status as middle class is so vulnerable. It's not real. It's not something that's certain. But I'm not going to address that right now. That's a whole nother topic. Right now, I want to get into what Frei Betto had to say. Now there are Black people in nice places, and that bothers the racist, says activist Frei Betto. Right now, I'm going to overdub what he said.
O Brasil foi a nação
Brazil was the
com o mais
nation with the
longo
longest
período de
period of slavery
escravidão
in the three
nas três
Americas,
Américas,
350
350
years,
anos,
still
ainda
bearing the
carregando a
shame of
vergonha
having been the
também de
last
ter
country
sido o
to
último
officially
país
abolish
a
slavery.
decretar a abolição oficial da escravatura. Ora,
Well,
os
black people in
negros no
Brazil are
Brasil são
discriminated against twice
duplamente
because they are black
discriminados
and
por
because they
serem
are
negros
poor.
e por serem pobres. Acontece que, de umas 3 décadas para
It so
cá,
happens that over the last 3 decades, a
tem
segment of
ascendido
black people has
socialmente.
risen
Porque muitas
socially.
pessoas perguntam,
Many
por que
people
que
ask why
agora
black people are
o
now in
negro
vogue
está em voga? Novela, no jornalismo,
in soap
ou
operas, in
seja,
journalism. In other words, a
abriu-se
huge space
enorme
has opened up
espaço
for black men and women.
para os
That's
negros e
great.
negras. Ótimo.
But
Mas
why are
por
they
que
rising
eles estão
socially, and this
ascendendo
exacerbates the structural
socialmente,
racism that
e
has
isso
already existed?
exacerba o racismo estrutural que sempre existiu. Só que
Except that
antes,
before, I
eu
didn't
não
have to express
precisava
my racism
manifestar o
because there
meu
were no black people
racismo,
on my
porque
horizon.
não tinha negros no meu horizonte, no clube que eu frequento, no restaurante que eu vou comer,
In the club I go to, in the
sabe?
restaurant I
Na
go to
sala
eat
de
in,
teatro que eu
In
vou,
the theater
não
I go
tinha
to, there were
negros.
no black
Agora
people.
tem.
Now there
E
are.
isso
And that
incomoda
bothers
o
the racism,
racista.
the
E
racist.
daí,
And so
essa
this
exacerbação.
exacerbation. So, Frei Betto hit the nail on the head. This is something that I've been saying for years. As long as black people stay in the area that people think they belong, in the poor classes, the poor neighborhoods, in the favela slums, in the hills around large cities, then racism doesn't really affect them so much. It's only when they start frequenting areas that are supposed to be like almost exclusively white that they really experience how Brazilian society really sees them. And these are some of the videos that I've done of late, just seeing how people react to black Brazilians. There's nothing, as I said in a previous video, there's nothing subtle about racism in Brazil. Of course, there are subtle elements, of course, but when you see the blatant forms of racism that you see every day there, how can you just believe that Brazil has just a subtle form? It's like the gloves have come off, right? So with that said, I wanted to actually talk about a case that kind of speaks to what Betto was talking about. I have a number of articles on the blog, again, almost 3,800 articles there that give you details and examples of what I'm talking about. As long as black people stay in their so quote unquote place, there's not a problem, even though they still will suffer racism, just the chance of monkey, the racist insults. But if they stay in their place, the quote unquote place, then they may not suffer what people will call the real racism. Like, what are you Negroes doing here? There's actually a story on the blog with that exact title. What are you doing here? Black people are not expected to be in certain areas. So I'm going to analyze this video further, give my analysis and a reaction, and also feature a story that speaks to what Frei Betto was just talking about. But for now, for those of you who want to hang out and check out that full analysis, hang out, step over to the other side, and I'm going to go a little bit further into that. But for those of you who just wanted to get the preview, and I'm going to end the video here and request that you all come back, check out the other video, the full video, like this video, share this video, subscribe, and click on the notification bell. Now, for those of you who want to hang around, stick with me and hang out, go over to the other side.